Look at several skin models and talk about them. One thing you can see on this model here is you can see, from this pink layer up on this model, you have epidermis, and then below is dermis. The primary tissue you see in the dermis is this dense, irregular connective tissue, this sky blue stuff here. Here you see some hair follicles. That is a sebaceous gland associated with the hair follicle. Here is an erector pili muscle associated with the hair follicle. So remember, this will contract and give us goosebumps. This will put out oil. Let's see, you have adipose tissue, the stuff that looks like honeycomb. Here is part of an eccrine sweat gland. We'll see better on the other side of the model. But you can see here the layers of the epidermis. We have thin skin here, so just 4 layers, but basale, spinosum, granulosum, corneum. So stratum corneum, stratum granulosum, the yellow is spinosum, and then this pink layer here is stratum basale. When you look at the dermis, you have the dermal papillae, or the papillary layer, just the part where you're invaginating up into the epidermis with these hills, increasing surface area. And as you can see, that's where the capillary beds are. But it's just the top part of the dermis, the dermal papillae. It has capillary beds that will provide blood to the epidermis and dermis. As the cells move away, as they're created in stratum basale, as they move up towards the surface of the skin, they'll start to die about stratum granulosum and be full of keratin, a waterproof protein. So part of the waterproofing process of the skin, as they die, they become cornified, which means full of this protein called keratin. And so if you look at this side, you see the hair follicle again, you see the sebaceous oil gland again. Here's a better shot of the eccrine sudoriferous gland, or the eccrine sweat gland, that's going to put its sweat directly onto the epithelial surface. Here you see a better shot showing it going all the way up to the epithelial surface. Here we have some sensory receptors shown here. Here's another sensory receptor, an encapsulated nerve ending, likely detecting pressure or touch. Let's see. So, remember the layers of the dermis are the papillary layer, where the dermal papillae are, and then you have the reticular layer. And the primary tissue is dense, irregular connective tissue. So we see a sebaceous gland, and we see an eccrine sudoriferous gland, but we don't see the apicrine sweat gland. On this model over here, we have 3 depictions of skin. We have thick skin. And so we have a 5th layer that we didn't see on those blue models of stratum lucidum. And so thick skin, places we don't have hair, the palms of our hands, soles of our feet, on our lips. So you have stratum corneum, and then here you have stratum lucidum, and then you have stratum granulosum, then spinosum, and then basale. Clowns like green, spongy balls. And then you have, once again, the papillary layer, dermal papillae. You have the reticular layer with all this dense irregular connective tissue. This is showing an eccrine sudoriferous gland, an eccrine sweat gland, sensory receptors, another sweat gland. Those are some free nerve endings. These would be more for like pain, something that we don't want to be desensitized to. You see some arterioles and venules that will feed the capillaries, some adipose tissue. We go here to the axillary region, to like your underarms. So now we have hair, and now we're thin skin. So we don't have stratum lucidum. So we have corneum, granulosum, spinosum, basale, hair follicle. And then we have the apicrine sweat gland, the sweat gland, apicrine sudoriferous gland, so the sweat gland that is associated with a hair follicle, sensory receptor. Then we go over to like our scalp, and we see hair follicle with erector pili muscle associated with it, for goosebumps. And then we see here a sebaceous gland, which is going to put out oil, known as sebum. Sensory receptor, venule, arteriole. So, pretty good model there. And then we have another model that's a lot more basic. But once again, we have thick and thin skin, and you can see lucidum on this model, but then they kind of combine granulosum and spinosum, and then of course the bottom line would be basale. But this would be thick skin, place something without hair. So you see the eccrine sudoriferous gland, the eccrine sweat gland. You see, the dermal papillae. You have the sensory nerve endings here, the encapsulated ones. Here, when you go over to the thin skin, you see that white line, the stratum lucidum, is gone. Here we can see a sebaceous gland associated with the hair follicle. So we're not seeing the apicrine sweat gland on any of the models except for this guy. It's the only one that has the sweat gland associated with the hair. But here we see a lot of the adipose tissue, the capillaries and the dermal papillae, like I said, the sebaceous gland, the eccrine sweat gland. And so this is just taking a look at the different skin models.